Hey guys, that's your Raid Shadow Legends. Welcome to the video. I'm glad to have you all here with me today, chilling, talking some Raid Shadow Legends. You're walking into this video, an average damage dealer, I would say. I would assess you in that way. But you're gonna walk out of this video as a DPS machine. We are gonna supercharge your account to the moon, baby.
And to all, a good night.
Before that, how you guys doing, first of all, IRL? I'm doing pretty well. I've been saying this a few videos now. I kind of have this weird itch to collect something. Isn't that weird? I don't collect anything right now, but I want to be a collector. So I'm thinking about reliving some of my youth. A little nerdy here, but I'm covering Raid Shadow Legends on YouTube, so whatever. It fits the bill, right? But I'm thinking about reliving my youth and collecting some comic books. I just don't know where to start, though, because there's a big universe or 2 or 3 or 10 out there. So I'm trying to, get into comic books. I don't even know. I haven't actually bought one yet, but... Anyway, I digress. If you have any recommendations, though, I would love to hear. I'm actually reading to get me in the mood. I'm reading or listening to a book right now. I think I mentioned it earlier, but the Marvel Comics The Untold Story by Sean Howe. I like it so far. Anyway, guys... Welcome to the video. Let's do this. Let's talk about damage in Raid Shadow Legends. All you gotta do to max out your damage, all you gotta do, it's super easy, is you just go to your offers and you just buy everything every day. There you go. Thank you for watching till the end of the video, guys. I really appreciate each and every one of you. And as always, take care, guys.
What about me?
I'm just joking. Of course, yes, I'll save the top comment from being the top comment and say, yes, there is a paid element to min-maxing your account in this game. Newsflash, it's a gotcha game, right? And they've got you every single time you spend, myself included.
Gotcha.
But how about beyond that? How can you get more damage out of your champions? Today, I want to give you my best methods, and I want to start with kind of the basics and kind of expand there all the way to the end game. So let's talk about 2 sources of damage. One thing I want to look at, actually, forget 2, how about just 1? One thing I want to look at with any damage dealer in the entire game, where's my Kale? There he is. Even starting all the way back in my Kale days, right? Is where's their damage coming from? This is Raid 101, right? But damage is based on attack. Damage is based on attack, damage is based on attack. Well, that means their attack stat is the only stat that you need to be considerate of when scaling up their damage in terms of the base stats. When I say base stats, I mean HP, attack, and defense, right? But some champions have 2 sources of damage. Quite a few actually do. Some of them can be enemy max HP and their attack, such as Royal Guard, right? So enemies max HP counts as a source of damage, right? So whatever their max HP is. Now there are some mitigations, some limitations, and a lot of bosses in the game, but those are 2 sources of damage as well. And then there's champions like He-Man, right? There's a lot of champions like this as well. Is there a hyphen in there? There sure is. He-Man.
Absolute categorical never.
All right, attack and HP, right? There's champions like Carnage, one of my favorite mythicals in the game, one of the strongest mythicals in the game. Attack and accuracy, right? Some champions have attack and speed, like Razzle. Raz? Where are you, Raz? There you are, chilling in the vault. Attack and speed. Inherently, champions with 2 sources of damage are actually kind of better, you know? It's better because it gives you 2 variables that you can accelerate, stack up on these champion builds so you can have 2 damage sources. 2 damage sources are generally better than 1 damage source. So whether the champion that you're trying to build has 1 or 2 or more or whatever, right? You just want to understand what they are before building them on your nukers. And you don't want to neglect one of the damage sources, even on a champion like Rhodos, just because he only has base 11, 12k HP, and his damage scales off of HP doesn't mean we want to neglect HP. It means we want to focus on flat stat HP and then percentage on attack, generally speaking. And that applies to any champion. So if they scale off of attack and HP, generally the damage that scales most, or the stat that it scales mostly, predominantly from, is going to be the first stat listed, attack, and then HP. But you can look that up on a Yumilove or hellhades.com, and they'll have those multipliers for you so you get a better understanding of how they scale, right? So don't neglect. 2 sources of damage is amazing, right? And on HP, even though his HP is very low, his attack is high at 1520s. HP is low is base HP. Generally, low HPs are anything below like 15K, right? Higher attacks are anything above like 1400, scaling all the way up to almost 2000, right? So we want to use our flat stats, aka bad example because I'm using merciless gear and I don't have that much of it, right? But ideally, we're using the flat stat HP because percentage is not going to give us as much of a yield, right? All right, so understanding the damage source on champions, and 2 damages are better than 1. Next question you want to ask about a champion you're looking to get more damage from is going to be, what should I do, or do I need other stats? Mainly accuracy, right? The one stat that's going to be the same on most champions is going to be crit rate, right? First thing you need to do is get your damage dealer to numero 100. 110 just for newer players, because I asked this the day that I started my first gacha game. I'm like, can you go to like 110? Is that better? No, 100 is 100. That's good. You can stop there. But getting 100% crit rate is going to be mandatory unless they're a champion like, I don't know, Soul Bond, right? Some champions, Cold Heart on her ability, on her A3 ability. Some champions have an additional percentage of inflicting a critical hit built into all of their skills, in which case 75% will do, right? But you want to make sure you get to 100% by hook or by crook, right? Beyond that, though, you want to understand if they need accuracy, right? So where this is very challenging is champions like Marius. He's the best champion in the game, arguably. However, he can be tricky to build because we want so much. His damage scales off of defense and enemy max HP, 2 sources of damage, amazing. But defense, and he's blasting out a lot of A1s. But he also has Enfeeble, and he needs accuracy to decrease the duration of all enemy buffs by 1 turn. Whenever you're doing anything to an enemy, you need accuracy to do it, right? Even if it's not, just landing a debuff. So that's tough. We want defense, we want crit rate, we want crit damage, and we want accuracy. That's 4 stats. That's a heavy lift. So the first thing you need to understand is this champion doing anything to the enemy team that requires accuracy? In which case, am I going to be using them in the arena, or am I going to be using them in PvE? In PvE, generally we want around 10 points of accuracy per stage of the dungeon. So, if we're on like a hard 10, generally 350 accuracy or so. Normal 25, generally 250 accuracy or so, right? Give or take. There's ways to get around that, increase accuracy buffs, decrease resistance buffs. There's tools at your disposal, but we need to understand that about a champion. If they don't require accuracy, and you only need crit rate, crit damage, and their attack stat, they're going to be fairly easy to build. You can just go all out damage, but you need to understand what type of parameters we're looking for, right? Now, the area I like to start with is the boots. Now, this is a little bit more end game, right? End gamey. But the question I like to ask myself is, can I get away with putting my champion in attack percentage boots if they're a nuker, right? To the collection, Fellhound. Can I get away with putting the attack stat as a percentage stat on my boots instead of speed, right? Now, for early game players, you're almost going to always want to go speed. Maybe the exception might be your campaign farmer, who only really needs to be very, very slow. Like beat Lord Shazar, I think it's like, I don't know, it's slow. He can be very slow, 104 speed or something like that, right? So you can get by on your campaign farmer if you have a dedicated campaign farmer. Just put attack percentage boots on them, right? And you're going to be great because it's going to be more damage, obviously. They're going to be moving slow, but still faster than the opponent. But there's a whole category of champions that I think players should be putting attack percentage or defense percentage or HP percentage, whatever their damage scales off of, right? I was going to say attack percentage colloquially here, right? Attack percentage on the boots. And these type of champions are champions that take or do a lot of damage out of turn, right? When it's not their turn. So I think one of the first ones that we get, I have Fellhound because he's my campaign farmer, right? You could use Taurus, campaign farmable uncommon champion. He might be the first champion that people, Saurus, not Taurus. Saurus is the poisoner. There he is. There he is, Saurus. So Saurus is a campaign farmable uncommon champion that we definitely want to put attack on his boots, right? He's going to be our campaign farmer. We're not going to be using him anywhere else. Campaign farmer he is, right? So that would be one early game example, right? Another one that a champion that's amazing that everybody gets is Dark Elhain, right? Dark Elhain, I tend to build very slow, and of course I don't have that build on her right now, I apologize, but I tend to recommend building her very slow with attack percentage, or not very slow, as fast as you can with attack percentage on her boots. Because Darkel Hane, sure, we still want her to get in there with her A2 and cycle her skills and stuff. Sure, we don't want her super soul like UDK, but a lot of her turns are going to come from the instant activation of the Death's Majesty whenever an ally or herself receives a freeze. So you might be an Ice Golem, you might be in Frostbiter, you might be in the arena against Torments or something. She's going to be going all the time when it's not her turn.
Wait for your turn.
Thus, let's maximize her damage. And there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all here, but it's a question you need to ask yourself. There's a lot of champions like this, right? Let me give you another example of a champion that I run fairly slow, comparatively, right? It's a mythical, so not the best example, but Geralt Broadmaul. Now, ideally, she'd be even faster than she is right now, but she's pretty dang slow for endgame. Why is she this slow? Because she, again, has a mechanic where whenever an ally attacks this champion, has a 25% chance to team up in the attack and join them with no cooldown or anything. She's just going to join them with a big, strong AoE Magma Slam on her A1 ability, which has a chance to repeat the attack, right? Another one is Toshiro. But you could say this about Ninja, it doesn't have to be Shishiro, but he's going to be joining in on an ally attack team that I run with Mikage. I slowed down my Toshiro build. Is he in the build right now? He is. This is such a slow build at 207, but I'm getting so much more damage out of him because I traded off a ton of speed for a ton of attack and crit damage. Now we're really talking here. My damage overall went way up. Why did I make this trade-off? It wasn't just in a vacuum. It's because I run him with Lady Mikage, and Lady Mikage is an ally attacker. So a lot of his damage is coming out of turn. Another example is going to be like a Phenax on an ally attack team, right? On an ally attack team, we move at the speed of our ally attacker, our Fatmans or Mikages, whoever we're using, right? Loranathils, Cardials, pick your favorite ally attacker. It's going to be an ally attack. Everybody's going to be joining in the fight at the speed of the ally attacker. Thus, I can get away with a little bit of a slower build on a champion like Phenax, go in there and ensure we get that kill shot with the A1, and we literally put them down, and they can't be revived because we have attack percentage on his boots, right? So think about your boots. Think about how best you want to use this champion. That being said, most champions probably still going to go speed with speed ascension, right? Ideally, on a lot of champions. But think about that. Think about how they're going to be utilized, right? Let's talk about gear sets really quickly here. The creme de la creme, the best of the best, in my opinion, when it comes to gear sets on nukers in this game. And I was just noticing that I thought I had Rhodos in my all the way built, and I was running him in live arena with only gauntlets on. I just put out a video on Rhodos, so this is fresh in the mind. Let's go ahead and get his gear back. Thank you. I think the best damage dealing set in the game is Merciless. It's also very hard to get, especially the accessories, right? But I think it's the number one. Let me just do a quick rundown of my top 5 DPS sets for you guys to consider. Merciless is so freaking good. It's so OP in this game. We get the 35% ignore defense at a 6-piece, right? Super strong, obviously. We get the chance of decreasing a random school's cooldown. We get a bunch of attack, a bunch of crit damage, a bunch of, again, ignore defense. And then all the way at 9-piece, we get a chance of getting an extra turn. Now, this is great for PvE. The only problem is in the arena PvP, it does have a downside. And that is you can't stick stone skin on them and get the 35% ignore defense. So it's best used on champions like a Sun Wukong, where if he dies, no big deal, he's coming back anyway. Or a champion like Rhodos, where he can't get 1 shot anyway. He can't even get 2 shot, because I have Aspect of Siroth and Ward of Blessing. So it's hard to kill this guy even with 3 shots on my account, right? But I digress. Merciless is very, very, very good, right? Very good. Insanely good. It's the best gear set, in my opinion. Siegfried, champions again, or protection with Nekrit the Great, right? You need some sort of way to keep them alive because you don't have access to Stone Skin. So put it on champions with that failsafe. Leo is another great example for Merciless because he gives himself an unkillable on his passive if he's about to die. Skull Crown is another OG example of this, right? She has unkillable for 1 turn when her HP drops below 20%. These are the champions you want to consider Merciless for PvP. Excuse me. All right, what about everybody else? It still comes down to the good old Savage and Lethal. They're still the second best for damage dealers. Who do I have in, Merciless there? Who do I have built in some Savage and Lethal right now? Do I have the Cock? I do have the cock built in. I don't really use them much, but sure. Gallius, Bloodcrest. Lethal with Stone Skin. Who do I have? Oh, no. Who am I running in Lethal and Stone Skin? Think, Ash. Think. Alas. Savage and Stone Skin, Lethal and Stone Skin. That's going to be the second way to go for the arena. Otherwise, just Lethal or Stone Skin for PvE, right? That's how you're going to want to build a lot of nukers. There is an exception to that too, because there's an exception to every rule, but I want to give you guys stuff to think about here, right? I promise you'd be an expert walking out of this video. I'm trying to deliver, damn it. I'm trying to deliver for you guys. What about champions like, I don't know, Royal Huntsman, right? What about Royal Huntsman? He's got 100% ignore defense ability. Whoa. What about Mortu Macabre? He's got 100% ignore defense ability. What about, does Bloodgorged have one? What about Bloodgorged? Ignore 100% enemy defense. If you have 100% ignore defense, well, you don't really need Savage or Lethal to ignore more defense. Granted, it can still apply to other abilities in their kits, but for these sort of champions, I would just go crit damage in their attack scaling stat. So make sure you take consideration of how much defense they're ignoring. Do you even need it, right? You already got House Smasher, for example, as well. So there's things that you can see, even on my masteries. I have the extra crit damage because I'm just hoping to get those kill shots with it built in 100% ignore defense. I'm already good. I'm already good to go, right? So don't go with the stats that you don't need, right? So that could also apply, for example, if you already have 100% crit rate with your artifacts, don't go with Deadly Precision, go with the attack, Blade Disciple, right? I mean, these are obvious things, but generally, we always want to go Deadly Precision and Keen Strike, and I like going with Shield Breaker, too, for the arena on our damage dealers. So those are some exceptions. But we talked about Lethal, we talked about Savage. Let's talk about some two-piece gear sets, right? So where do we go with our two pieces? I'm literally typing in Cruel, like Cruel gear is going to pop up. You ever do that? You're like, fingers type for your mind or whatever. Cruel gear, right? Cruel gear is still exceptionally good in the game. We get to ignore 5% of enemy defense, and we get the attack up at the same time. So Cruel is very, very good. And then Zeal gear. Zeal gear is very good. Damage plus 20%, plus 3% damage for every 25% HP this champion has. You get this from the live arena. So I would say those are the top 5 damage dealing sets in the game. Zeal, Cruel, Savage, Lethal, Merciless. All right, let's talk about some blessing considerations, right? So I love Soul Reap. Soul Reap's so strong. You know what? Soul Reap, I thought in the beginning was an arena move. Like get those kill shots. Marius and Soul Reap, it's a must-have. It's a must-have blessing for Marius, in my opinion, right? It's so strong in the arena. But I'm sure you guys are in the same boat, right? But man, getting the kill shots with Soul Reap against bosses who have like the thresholds here, if you have it maxed out, even if you don't have it maxed out, 14% of a boss's max HP is a hell of a lot of HP, right? Like I got a Soul Reap kill shot on Amos this morning, right? In Curse City, and my man, it felt like he had like millions and millions of HP. So Soul Reap is very good. I think it's underrated in a way. Obviously, Polymorph is still going to be a consideration if you have it at 6-star on any champion in the arena, right? Brimstone is good to have maybe one of on your team, especially in early to mid game. Brimstone can make a hell of a big difference to your damage, right? Especially in areas like clan bosses, all 3 of them. Having that smite deal that damage is 5% of their max HP. That's significant. Now, only one can be active on the battlefield, so no need to put a smite on or a brimstone on everybody, right? But it's this really strong consideration still to this day. Crushing Rend. Also, brimstone, I should say smite, counts as a debuff for trials, right? For Chimera clan boss, and also for probably Faction Wars 2.0 if we have some challenges that are based on debuffs. So something to consider there as well. I know I rely on it pretty heavily against Ram, I believe, trials. Crushing Rend, always going to be very good. Each round, a number of this champion's hits will ignore a percentage of the target's defense. The percentage of ignored defense depends on the level of the target. So generally, we look at Crushing Rend to be a PvE blessing for damage dealers, right? Because ignoring defense based on the target's level, ignore 1% of defense every 10 levels. That scales, though, differently depending on which level. 1 for every 40 levels, 1% for every 25 levels, 1 for every 10. Against mobs that are level, 300 plus, that's a hell of a lot of defense that we're ignoring, right? 30% ignored defense is huge, is massive. So that's why we generally consider a PvE mastery, because the mobs are much higher level, right? It will make a bigger impact on you. If you're going in the arena, it's not useless, but I mean, you're going to be ignoring 6% at full level, right? 6% because we cap out at level 60. So that's it. It's like getting one cruel set plus 1% on your champion. So I don't recommend it in most cases for the arena, but hey, if you're trying to min-max, you can try it out. It's certainly going to help. It's not going to do you harm. I just prefer other blessings personally. Lethal Dose. Extra poison damage, very good on Nishak. It's the best, I think it's the best blessing on Nishak. Or Nell. Nell is a mythical from Sylvan Watchers. Super, super niche, but just wanted to give it a call out. We also have the Incinerate. There it is. I forgot the name of it for a second. Incinerate. Burn damage. Very good on Sulfurion. Very, very good on Gizmak, right? These are, again, more niche. Very good on Volcanos, right? More niche, but very, very good on specific burners. And remember, burn can pop Stone Skin in the arena as well. So it's a really solid blessing on your HP burn champions, right? Your HP burn champions for arena battles, I should say, right? And siege battles as well. All right. What else we got here? Cruelty. Cruelty is a big favorite of a lot of players for PvE content. Whenever this champion hits an enemy, decreases their defense until the end of the round, occurs once per hit. This is great on multi-hitters, right? On AoE multi-hitters, on a champion like a Kemptim, right? Very strong. If multiple champions have this blessing, still cannot decrease a single target's defense more than 40% or a boss more than 20%. That's a lot of ignored defense. I probably should be looking on a champion that's fully, so we can actually see the entire blessings, right? It's a lot of extra defense reduction, right? So very, very strong there on Cruelty, especially again in PvE. What else are we missing here? I think that's, Nature's Wrath. Nature's Wrath. Increase the damage inflicted by this champion for every debuff they successfully place, except debuffs placed by gear sets. This is going to be an amazing blessing to put on your longer battle champions, damage dealers who have debuffs. I'm talking a champion like a Venus or a champion like a Trunda in Hydra. Now that she places those burns automatically on the A3, I mean, that's going to stack up and you're going to get up to 30% extra damage. That's better than any other blessing by far, right? Okay, am I forgetting anything super obvious here? No. Well, yes, I am. Phantom Touch. Very good, especially on Fire Knight, because it counts as a hit. And it can deal... Phantom Touch, I find myself going with Phantom Touch, not just on rare, but on epic champions. That doesn't make sense. Maybe for early, low awakening, 1 or 2 stars. Sometimes it feels more worth it to me to go Phantom Touch than it does like 1 or 2 stars of Crushing Rend, for example, right? And in Fire Knight, every situation, going Phantom Touch, right? And then I feel like I'm forgetting one more here. Indeed, I am. It is Cracking Roots. Well, 2 more. Cracking Roots. There's only a few champions in this game strong enough to bust through Stone Skin. And if you have one of them, congratulations, right? Going Cracking Roots, now that they have Stone Cleaver, is that the name of it? Stone Cleaver artifacts. Now you can actually power your top DPS, Stone Cleaver, to actually bust through Stone Skin. 30% more damage to Stone Skin shields at 4-piece. 70% more damage to Stone Skin shields at 9-piece. I've tested it out. Cracking Roots plus Stone Cleaver can bust through Stone Skin. The problem is you need a 9-piece to do it. And you need a fully awakened champion. So it's really a whale feature. I wouldn't really be worrying about it at this time, at least, unless I had those, unless I had 6 stars, 9 pieces with 6-star awakening, which is a tall order, right? But it can be very effective. I went against a lot of Siegfrieds in Stone Cleaver and in Cracking Roots on my little arena push there, right? On my top 100 live arena finish. Especially towards the end of the season as more players got the Stonecleaver artifacts to pull it off, right? The only other one I'll talk about is Heaven Cast. Increase the damage inflicted by this champion according to the number of buffs on them. This is really significant as well. Plus 2% for each buff at 6 stars, 1.5, and 1 at 5 and 3 respectively. This can be huge on champions like a Taurus or a Turvold, champions who already you have incentivization to put a ton of buffs on them, or when combined with like an Allele and a Necrit with all those buffs, right? So it's definitely maybe a little bit more of a niche blessing, but if you know you're going to be stacking up a ton of buffs on your damage dealer, then it does make a lot of sense to consider. All right, let's talk about some key masteries really quickly here, and then I want to talk about Great Hall after this, and also 2 very important sets that we haven't mentioned yet. Obviously, crit rate, crit damage. Let me just go with a champion that I'm actually built to be a nuker here. So this is a very typical arena nuker build, right? So some key considerations here are going to be obviously crit rate, crit damage. If you need the crit rate, go with attack, right? Shield breaker, do more damage against shields. Ruthless ambush, it doesn't always work, right? Damage increased by 8% for the first hit on each enemy, right? So there's stone skin to consider, there's reaction gear to consider. There's a lot of things that can mitigate this, but when it works big time. Cycle of violence, usually nukers deal a lot of damage, so getting cycle of violence is going to be incredible for you to get those skill cooldown potentially. And then single out, bring it down especially. 6% more damage when attacking targets with higher max HP, unless it's a Taurus or a Narcissus or an Eryx, an HP-based damage dealer. You're probably going to be dealing with enemies with more HP all the time. 6% extra damage is a ton, also, Heart of Glory increases the damage inflicted by 5% when attacking with full max HP. That's very, very good as well, right? Kill Streak, getting more damage escalation for enemies that you kill. And then Helm Smasher is the quintessential nuker tier 6 mastery for the arena, for wave content. When engaging other champions in the game, right? When engaging bosses in the game, if your champion hits 1 or 2 times with their A1 ability as kind of a litmus test, there are some exceptions, but mainly 1 or 2 hits with their A1, their basic ability, you get War Master against bosses. 3 or more times, like a Newt or a Coltart, Giant Slayer. We go Giant Slayer, okay? And then very niche situations, enemy max HP, ignore 100% defense. You can consider Flawless Execution, but it's by far the least picked. Defense tree. If you don't need accuracy and all the things that we talked about earlier in the video, you go defense. You can go Defiant. In the arena, I like to go Defiant and Improved Parry because you're always getting hit with critical hits in the arena. If it's for PvE, I like going Tough Skin and Blast Proof because you're not getting as many critical hits and you can mitigate AoE damage that way. 2 of my favorite blessings or masteries on every champion are going to be Resurgent and Wisdom of Battle, 2 that I actually don't have here on Siegfried. But Resurgent and Wisdom of Battle give you great protection against debuffs, right? And mitigation against further debuffs. And then Retribution and Deterrence, especially if they have a very powerful A1 like Phoenix with a Deny Revive, or a strong AoE, for example, like an Eryx. Deterrence and Retribution will get a lot of counterattacks, generally very good on damage dealers because they usually have hard-hitting A1 abilities. All right, I want to talk about those 2 artifacts before we leave the screen here. And that is probably pretty obvious, but I want to give an anecdotal story as well to you guys. Man, this video is already so long. Crap, no one's going to watch. No one watches long videos, except for you. I appreciate you. Damn, I thought I was being concise, and apparently I'm not. 9-piece protection and 9-piece feral. They're both very, very hard to get, obviously, to get the accessories and stuff. Chimera Clash or Siege, Hydra Clash. I mean, it's hard to get this stuff. But getting the damage, allies deal 5% more damage per each buff placed by the wearer. And conversely, on Feral, allies deal 5% more damage for each debuff placed by the wearer can make an insane difference to your account in terms of your total damage. This can truly just yield insane dividends, the extra damage, right? Let me just pick out a few of my absolute faves. Champions that I actually run in these sets. Senna. 9-piece protection, automatic, right? She's got 2 buffs here, right? Actually, 3 buffs, 2 continuous heals, and an increased speed. That's 15% extra damage when you have Senna on your team in a 9-piece protection. Let me give you, sometimes I'll do it with champions with only 2 buffs. For example, how about Lydia, right? I think 9-piece protection is very underrated on Lydia. She only has 2 buffs, but it's a 3-turn cooldown, and if you don't know what else to build her in, right? There's so many different considerations. It's not necessarily the best build, but in long battles, all those extra 10% damage from those buffs that she places on your champions, it's really going to add up big time. How about feral gear? Man, everybody should have, anybody who's lucky enough to own Rio Bone Spear. I don't have her in the build right now, but she is probably the best, one of the best. Ramen 2, same thing, right? Champions that dish out an insane amount of debuffs, man, they're busted, they're broken. Rio, even though she can't land stun against bosses, right? Did I say Leo? Riho, she has like, you can get 25% extra damage when you land her debuffs on the A2. That is more powerful than almost any ability in this game, right? That's how crazy she can do. And it's not just off of one champion or just her, it's everybody on your team, right? When I switched in my Feral, for example, when I switched him into 9-piece Feral gear with his decreased speed on his A1 and his decreased accuracy and block buffs, I got 15% extra damage. Basically 15% extra damage because I have debuff extenders on the team as well to extend his debuffs. That's a permanent 15% extra damage. And that's only in one 9-piece gear set on one champion, right? When we add up his passive and all the other things that we're talking about here, we can 2 or 3 or even 4x our damage, right? When we add up all these little things, right? Just a quick note on Ascension. I still prefer most damage dealers. Feral's not obviously a damage dealer, quintessential damage dealer. I still prefer crit damage with crit damage as my main stats on my gauntlets. I still prefer attack percentage with attack percentage, their damage dealing stat, as my main stat and my Ascension stat on their chest piece. And I still prefer usually speed and speed. But we talked about exceptions to that as well. All right, last thing is going to be your Great Hall, right? Great Hall, affinity bonuses in general. Affinity matters a lot in Raid, right? Newsflash, affinity matters. So magic against spirit, force against magic, spirit against force. This is really, really crucial to really min-maxing your damage, to actually getting your full potential damage anywhere in the game, in the arena, in clan boss, everywhere. It would behoove you, once you kind of graduate from mid-game, kind of in the end game territory in Raid, it would behoove you to start building different affinity champions. It might even make it better, a better decision to go with an affinity champion that's a little bit less powerful over a nuker that you already have 7 magic nukers on your account, right? That way you have that diversity, especially in live arena where you have to draft, right? You want to have answers to Harimas. You might want to build your Queen Ava or whatever it may be, right? So affinities matter a lot in terms of damage, in terms of everything, but damage, landing your debuffs, everything, right? So do not discount. Even veterans out there could do themselves a service by reminding themselves of that fact, right? In terms of damage escalation, how do you manage your Great Hall and area bonuses? I'll keep it short, like nothing else in this video. We want to go, obviously we want to prioritize accuracy no matter what, because that's the best way to go. Resistance as well, because they're counting stats. They yield you so much better for your bang for your buck for these crests, right? Going with the counting stats first. But crit damage, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. Crit damage, and then I would go with like HP, defense, even over attack. I always save attack for last because attack is only going to benefit attack-based champions. It's only like a third of the champions in the game or whatever, right? Attack-based damage dealers at least. Area bonuses, though, it's worth mentioning that it's not, the answer is not crit damage here. The answer is ignore defense, right? Getting 20% ignore defense in these areas it's just insane. It's almost a savage set or a lethal set just for your area bonuses. So ignore defense is the #1 priority for damage, right? I still prefer speed over ignore defense, but a lot of other endgame players I talk to still recommend just going with ignore defense first. But I can't get away from speed. All right, guys, that's a million ways to get more damage in Raid Shadow Legend. We didn't even talk about relics, right? So we could have a whole nother video about the best DPX relics out there. I'm tempted to delve in, but it's been way longer than I thought. I wanted this to be a digestible guide. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching till the end of the video. Much love, and as always, take care, guys.